Right, I'm going to talk to you about something called HeartMath, which is it's a piece of hardware and software based really around trying to sort of de-stress people and trying to maximize exam performance. Let me just grab this. What will it do for you? Well, hopefully HeartMath will maximize your learning and recall, improve motivation, enhance your memory, all those things on there, improve exam technique, and particularly at the bottom there, reduce stress. So it's the sort of thing that we've started introducing with some of our exam groups. I've presented it to all sixth formers in the school and year 11s as well. A little bit of brainology. You probably know all this already. The brain essentially is split into three levels. This first level here is all about hormonal control, temperature control, the very sort of basics just to keep us alive, making sure we're still breathing, that kind of thing. The second level of the brain here is our sort of fight or flight mechanism. So this is all about our emotional response to things. And the third level of the brain is what we're most interested in, I guess, as teachers. It's the thinking part of the brain, the part of the brain that helps us to differentiate the way we behave. It's the place where we store the stuff we've learned. I guess it's the most important thing we need when students are going into exams, for example. Now, what's traditionally thought is that when we take something in, when we experience something, that information goes to the thalamus, and then it was sent up into the cerebral cortex, which is the thinking part of the brain, the third part of the brain. So that was kind of the traditional thinking. If we saw, for example, a big snake coming in here, just slithering up towards me here, if that was the case, then I would kind of analyze it, and I'd be thinking about it. I'd be using my thinking brain, and I'd think, oh, it's a nice color, isn't it? Look at those great big teeth. Oh yeah, isn't that, oh, it's going to come and attack me. What should I do now? But we don't do that, obviously. We go into fight or flight mode, and so what happens is the message gets sent straight to the fight or flight part of the brain, the second level of the brain, the amygdala, and that then causes physiological responses in us, and it makes our heart beat really quickly. It makes us sweat, as I'm doing now. It makes us sort of, nervy and all that kind of thing. And then the heart then sends messages back to the brain, and it tells the brain to release certain hormones. So we need to kind of think of this from a student's perspective. If we think of the beach ball, I guess that would help. What's the sort of thing that makes our students nervous? Is it sitting down for an exam? Is it walking into school in the first place? Is it when a teacher says something to them that winds them up, something that reminds them of something bad that's happened to them in the past? Is that the sort of thing that puts them into fight or flight mode? So you see here the pituitary gland. What happens when we're sort of put into that stressful situation is we release a chemical called cortisol. That's a hormone. It's a stress hormone, and it's not a very nice hormone. It does all sorts of sort of nasty things. In a way, it does some good things, but it really puts us into fight or flight mode. So what that does is it closes off the thinking part of the brain. And I'm sure we've been in the situation, all of us before, when we step up to the plate to do something and suddenly our mind goes blank. And it certainly happens to students. And that's exactly what's happening. We're releasing this cortisol, and the cortisol just cuts off the thinking part of the brain and just leaves us with the fight or flight part of the brain. And what HeartMath tries to do is tries to help us get into the right sort of mindset to be able to access the thinking part of the brain, which obviously is going to be good for exams. So this chemical cortisol, if there's lots of adrenaline going around us as well, we have these sorts of emotions. We're frustrated, we're angry, and we will have seen students, if they're asked a difficult question in a lesson, maybe have a big strop, storm out of the room or whatever. If there's not much adrenaline going around, they're cynical, they're exhausted, they don't want to learn, they don't really want to be there. But the other chemical, one of the other chemicals that the pituitary gland also releases is DHEA, and that's the direct opposite of cortisol. So as the cortisol goes up, let's get this right. If there's lots of cortisol, there's very little DHEA. It's difficult to do this with a microphone. If there's lots of DHEA, there's very little cortisol. So for our students, obviously we want lots of DHEA. It's a happy hormone, a happy chemical. So it makes us feel all these things here: dynamic, passionate, confident. This is the sort of situation we want in an exam. We're cool under pressure. We know what we've learned. We can access all that stuff. We can use it effectively. So what HeartMath does is it measures heart rate variability, which is the time between heartbeats. It's not actually heart rate. Our heart, 60 beats per minute or whatever. It's the time between each heartbeat. And I'll show you in a second, but this is what should, hopefully, if we manage to control this through a breathing technique, it should allow us to access the cerebral cortex, which is the thinking part of the brain, as I said. So this is what HeartMath looks like. This is one of the parts of it. All it is a dongle you put in your computer, and you fix it up to your earlobe, and it will measure your heart rate and various other things, but your heart rate variability is the key thing. This is the heart rate variability here. And if you look down here, this red thing here, this shows us that the student that was hooked up to it at this moment was not very coherent. They call it an incoherent state. What we want is lots of green here, which is a coherent state. So this is when they're in kind of a stress state. You can see it's very erratic, so the time between each heartbeat is kind of going all over the place. So although you might have a heartbeat of, say, 80 beats per minute, you might have 60 beats for 1 second, and then go up to 90 beats for the next second, then down to 70, and really sort of erratic heart rate. This is the same student after they've done a couple of minutes of this sort of, it's kind of like a yogic breathing technique, really. Just breathing deeply through your nose for 5 seconds and out through your mouth for 5 seconds. And it's got to be nice diaphragmatic breathing, just very relaxed. And it's the sort of thing that just gets you in control. And it allows the heart to send all these messages to the brain to say, it's okay, everything's under control, there's no need to panic. And that in turn releases the DHEA in your brain, which is the happy hormone. And that just lets you calm down. It lets you access your thinking part of the brain. And you can see there lots of green, so that means they're very coherent at this stage. I used this originally a year or so ago with GCSE language students to try and improve their A-star and A grades. And just started with 7 students. Of the 7 who took the pre-trial survey, 4 were highlighted as being in a stress state, 2 of which were identified as anxiety cases. I did it over about 3 months, and by the end, we had some really interesting results. It was particularly for their speaking exam. And in their speaking exam, some of them improved their grade by up to 2 grades, which is, I mean, we'd expect some improvement from mocks to GCSEs, but this was quite outstanding improvements. I probably haven't got time to show you the actual thing there, but it did make a real difference. And we've introduced it to all of Year 11 and all of Year 12 and 13 this year. And I've had kids walking past me on the way into an exam just this week, the first exam of the week, saying, it's okay, sir, I'm doing the breathing. I know what I'm doing. And it just allows them to sit at the start of an exam, 2 minutes, breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, and it just kind of calms them down, gets them into the right sort of state for the exam. This is the guy we got HeartMath through. The company is called Ultimate Performance. It's a guy called Jon Wright. And it's well worth getting in touch with him. He'll help you out with all sorts of surveys, pre-test and post-test as well. And I think that the beauty of it really is, you know, we'd all tell people just count to 10, just breathe slowly, all that kind of thing. The beauty with this is you can actually see the effect that the breathing's having on the way your heart's going. You can see if you've got loads of red, red in the red column there, you do the breathing and hopefully gradually you'll just see after a minute or so you'll start to go green. And it just lets you see right in front of your eyes the effect that this breathing technique has. It's a very useful thing to have. Thank you.